we are talking about today is how do you create a high performing team, in particular during uncertain times, when you're under pressure, when we really need to double down on leadership. So, this is what we are going to be covering today. And it's a topic that I am hugely passionate about because here's the thing, you are only one person. There are only 24 hours in a day. So, you might think that your organization is about your brand, your logo, the product you offer to your clients and your customers. And all of that is hugely important. Of course, it is. However, the most important asset in your business, and the accountants may disagree with this, but a technical definition of an asset is your people, your teams. And when you actually have a team that really works together, it is night and day in terms of the results you can achieve, how you feel as an organization, and how you come together as a team. Now, I'm really lucky because I get to work with incredible businesses all over the world. And those businesses are actually the ones which are totally smashing it. And we work on high performance, growth. What does high performance really mean? I work with some of the biggest global brands around the world, not just in terms of the executive leaders, but also their teams, their boards, their senior leadership teams, etc. So it is hugely important that we focus on our people, and we're able to do that in a way which is authentic and meaningful. So let's get into this. Now, if you are not already following Brave, Bold, Brilliant, please do. Let's get connected on social media. Hit the subscribe button, or if you're watching this on YouTube, or maybe you are listening to this on the podcast, on iTunes, on our Apple Podcasts, or on Spotify. Hit the subscribe button, because then you will get notified every time we go live with a new episode. And we are building an incredible community of business leaders, of entrepreneurs, of founders, of senior leaders that are totally scaling up everything they do. So we are all about growth at Brave, Bold, Brilliant. We don't want to play small. We want to absolutely go for it. But, why is this so important in particular right now? Well, listen, there is a lot of economic pressure. There arguably there always is. When you're in business, you will have been through multiple highs, multiple lows, etc. And certainly the 30 plus years that I've had in business, I've seen some incredibly turbulent times and had to lead through, very challenging situations, whether that was the Gulf War, whether it was 9/11, whether it was ash cloud, COVID, all of these things, the crisis in the Middle East, etc. So arguably in business, you're always going to have challenging times, but certainly at the moment, there's a lot of uncertainty. Economic backdrop is challenging. We have global wars going on. We have impact on consumer confidence. So, why am I mentioning this? Not to be doom and gloom, because I also believe that when the times are tough, that's when actually we often are creative. It's when we might find other opportunities that maybe we wouldn't have come across when times were just sort of steadily plodding along. But the thing is here, it's so important that we lean into our teams. We back our teams. We actually create the best teams that you possibly can, because you are only one person. And as I say, only 24 hours in the day. So you're only ever as good as your team. So actually paying attention to this, the best leaders that I see, they create white space in their diaries. So it's not jam-packed full of busy meetings all of the time, but they create that space to really support their teams, to create a high performing team, and to be able to recruit talent and attract long-term talent into their organization. And that's what smart leaders do. And let's be honest, how do you define a high performing team? A high performing team actually wins together or not at all. So I would challenge you in your organization to really be honest. Are you genuinely a high performing team, or actually are you a collection, a working group where, yes, you have some collaboration. Yes, you have some elements of a common purpose, but there are still silos. There's still individuals that are maybe focusing on their own results as opposed to, the collective results of the team. So a high performing team wins together or not at all. And that is a big cultural shift. Now, when the pressure is on and we have to deliver numbers and we have a difficult macroeconomic background, it can be really challenging to not let that pressure get to you as a leader and therefore let that pressure filter down to your team. So we have to avoid that because high performance does not mean work harder, right? It really does not. Actually, it often means doing less, but working in a smarter way. So I am going to take you through, at the high performing team model that I actually use with my clients. Now, this is a money can't buy kind of experience that you're getting now because I want to take you into the boardroom with me. I want to take you into the environments of the best organizations in the world and really open the closet for you in terms of high performing teams and what does that mean. Now, as a leader, you know, your role is to set the vision, get people aligned behind a common purpose, recruit absolutely brilliant people, give them the tools that they need to do their jobs, provide the accountability, but also the autonomy so that they can fly and thrive and succeed and create an environment of psychological safety. That's what great leaders do. And that's really where I see the results coming in, both in terms of creating a culture where people genuinely feel part of something and genuinely want to actually, work together to achieve more because they're so focused, they're so behind the goal, they're so aligned with the brand and the purpose. And, I think there's also, what I see quite a lot is that people often join brands, but they leave bosses, right? They join brands, but they leave bosses. So your role as a leader is to create the right environment, is to really provide all of those aspects that someone that is ambitious has the opportunity to really showcase their best talents, and you're there to support and help them thrive. And ultimately, as a result of that, you will find that you get the results for the business, for your clients, for all your stakeholders, for the shareholders, whoever it is that you may need to actually work with. So there's a lot in here. And as I say, I've been in business for 30 plus years. So I've seen a lot, the highs and the lows, the challenges. I've seen poor leadership. I've seen teams that are dysfunctional. And sometimes that happens in the boardroom as well. Let me tell you, very often, I can sometimes be called in to actually help with quite a dysfunctional board or a dysfunctional leadership team or a team that is working in silos. So I've been privileged to run very large global organizations myself as the managing director of the emerging markets at TUI, as the CEO of Saga, but also as a portfolio business owner today. So I don't know it all, but I've certainly seen a lot. And my purpose in life is to unlock the brilliant in leaders, businesses, and their teams. So I'm hugely passionate about this. So, what is a high performing team? Well, there are 6 characteristics of a high performing team. Okay. So I'm going to go through each of these and then I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip as to how you can really take a good look at your own team, see where you are, and then have a clear plan if there are some areas which you might need to work on. All right. So, we have to confront our own reality sometimes. And what we see sometimes pleases us. And other times, what we see maybe challenges our thinking or might disappoint us in certain ways. But knowledge is power if you take action, and you listen to the feedback. All right. So, a high performing team, then, there are 6 characteristics. Now, there are other models of high performing teams, but this is the one that I really like to use, and the one that, as I say, I use with my global clients. So, when we run an Executive Edge program, we are deeply immersed with the senior leadership team, with the board for 3 days, 2 to 3 days off-site, where we can really focus and get into this. And we bring in psychometric profiling, we do all sorts of great stuff. But a big part of what we look at is high performance and board effectiveness. Now, you might be sitting in your business right now thinking, oh my gosh, I could do with some of that. Well, if you do, please do drop us a line, because we're here to help. Whether it's our Executive Edge program, whether it's our leadership masterminds, whether it's one-to-one business mentoring, or indeed our Rise Academy, which is our digital online platform. We are here with a whole suite of business strategy and leadership development programs that is going to get you to that next level. And in particular, when the times are tough, this is the most important time to invest in yourself as a leader, but also your teams, because that is what's going to get you through the challenges. That is what's going to deliver the results. And that is ultimately what's going to really create a meaningful work environment. So, grab a pen and paper if you haven't already, because you might want to take some notes. You can also listen back to this. Remember, we have our YouTube channel, Brave, Bold, Brilliant. We have our podcasts, which are with Brave, Bold, Brilliant, again, which is broadcast, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, you will find us. And Brave, Bold, Brilliant is in the top 1.5% of all podcasts in the world. We have well over 600 episodes now. So there's so much rich content there for you to learn from each other. And we are creating this fabulous community of incredible business leaders. So, as I say, make sure we're connected and subscribe to Brave, Bold, Brilliant on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere else that you get to choose. So, listen, 6 characteristics of a high-performing team. The first one is being aligned behind a common purpose. All right. Now, this is where every single person in the organization, in your team, understands why you exist, how you help your clients, how you differentiate yourself against your competitors, why you exist. And that passion and energy, that when you have that alignment behind a common purpose, I'm telling you, that's when your team becomes unstoppable. And as a business leader, it's absolutely critical that you set the tone and you provide that vision, that mission, that excitement. The strategy is clear. Everyone understands why you exist, because that really is where, the magic is. That's where the real personal connection to the brand and the organization comes. So when you create a culture that is purpose-led, then that's when you can stand out in the crowd. So that's the first thing. The second characteristic of a high performing team is around having an accepted leadership team. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is that the leadership team is understood, is respected, has credibility, has gravitas, is able to lead in a authentic, powerful way that the whole organization, internal and external stakeholders, get behind. Now, I don't know if any of you have been in a situation where maybe there's been the change of an MD or a CEO or someone in a senior leadership position, and they just don't gel in the new organization. That can happen. Or sometimes it can be that a certain team, as I say, can be a bit dysfunctional. Maybe there's a bad apple in the team that then spoils the whole lot. So we've all, I think, over the years experienced, either directly or indirectly, scenarios where the leadership was not respected. The leadership team was not really working cohesively as one. And that you feel that filters all the way through an organization. So you have to have this real strength in being, recognized as a strong leadership team that people respect. And this isn't just about the boss. This is about the leadership team. Okay. So the third area, which is really important with a high performing team, is roles and responsibilities and making sure that they are super clear. Every single person knows what part they play. They understand where there are interdependencies. They understand how they contribute to the wider team and the wider business, but everyone knows exactly what's expected of them and the roles and responsibilities are super clear. Now, sometimes you can get a blurring of roles and responsibilities, and that can happen, especially as an organization might be growing and we're adding certain elements in. Or it could be that technology is changing. We're looking at the speed of AI right now, and that is changing people's roles and responsibilities. So when that happens, it's really important to just stop, check in, and actually just redefine those roles. Make sure it's super clear. And if you do have some joint responsibilities, how are you going to work together is going to be really important. So clear roles and responsibilities. The fourth area is around strong relationships. Now, you don't have to have everyone in work or in a business as being your best friends. This is not what I'm talking about. But what I am talking about is a mutual respect for each other, having relationships where it's a human to human interaction. And I believe that in the world of tech and AI, human to human is almost becoming a new currency, which sounds quite bizarre. So AI tech is all amazing. We need all of that. Of course we do. It allows us to go further faster, but actually relationships, because here's the truth. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust. Now, that could be a fellow colleague. It could be actually be, an external person coming into the business. Maybe you're trying to attract new employees, new talent. It could be someone investing in your organization. So it's so, so important, this human to human. So those solid relationships, really important. I say you don't have to like everyone. You don't have to agree all of the time, but you do need to have respect. And actually, especially during tough times, it's so important. So solid relationships. The fifth point I want to talk about is systems and processes. Now, this is often an area that scores the lowest in organizations, and it can be the harder one to crack, in particular in a more mature organization that may have legacy systems. It's been bolted on. It's a huge, huge machine that you're actually trying to kind of deal with. That can be quite difficult. If you're in a startup mode, actually, this can be a great way to set the way that you're going to work going forward, but actually building it in a way that has much more automation from the beginning. So you're not trying to retrofit. So systems and processes facilitate the way we work, right? And how efficient we can be. And then the final characteristic of a high performing team is excellent communication. And that is excellent communication within the team, but also to the wider business, to the external world. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be the best kept secret. So as a brand, it's absolutely critical that you communicate, what you offer to the market, what you offer to your customers. And equally, internally, you can never over communicate. And in particular, when you're going through tough times economically, or where there's lots of periods of change, communication is so, so critical. And that is, of course, is linked to the relationship piece, right? So all of these six characteristics are hugely, hugely important. So there's a lot in here. I appreciate that. But, one of the ways that you can then really take a good look at whether you are a high performing team or not and hold a mirror up to you, and you have to be honest here if you're going to do this in a meaningful, worthwhile way, is you literally you write down individually how you would score yourself, 1 to 10 on each of those characteristics as a collective, as a team. And I always say, do it individually to start off with. And then, you get the whiteboard out and everyone puts their scores on there and allows you then to average it out and see how you're doing. Now, normally what happens is you have a couple of areas where you're scoring high. There's normally a couple sort of middling, maybe middle to upper, and then there's normally a couple of outliers that are quite low. But what that allows you to do then is to say, okay, interesting. What's going on here? What actions might we need to take in order to make an improvement there? And you almost make that, you make that commitment together as a team to change and to improve. And it's quite also quite helpful if you set yourself an aspiration. When you're sitting here in 12 months' time, what would you like to see those scores as? So it's super simple, super powerful. So creating a high performing team is more important now than ever. And it is not about asking your team to work harder. It is about aligning behind a common purpose, having excellent relationships, clear roles and responsibilities, systems and processes that support everything that you do, an accepted leadership team, and really being able to pull together as a collective. A winning team wins together or not at all. We are here to help. We are absolutely by your side, hand in hand with you, whether you're listening on the podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you would like our help and support in your business, either yourself as a leader or with your teams, please reach out. Now is the time to invest effort, resources, energy, emotion into your team. There is never a better time than today. So let's keep it real. Let's be there to support each other. And just remember, it genuinely is by being brave and bold that you're going to unlock your brilliant. So I will see you next time.